Yo, Stafford, what's up, man?
Not much. How about with you?
All right, man.
A little bit too busy over there talking to.
Nice glasses, huh?
Thank you.
Look at you.
All right, well, we're live.
Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to the November 18th, 2020 Henrietta Town Board meeting. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion for minutes?
For me?
It's you.
That's you.
Sorry. I make a motion to approve the preceding meetings minutes from October 28th, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. For those residents who are participating virtually, if you wish to speak during tonight's meeting, if you're using on the computer or on an app, please select the raise hand control. It typically can be found under the participant list. If you're calling in, you can press *9. When it's your turn to speak, the meeting host will enable you to talk. If you're following us on YouTube or Facebook, please visit www.henrietta.org/wishyouwerehere for detailed instructions on how to connect to Zoom. For the deaf or hard of hearing, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. For everyone else, please reserve the Q&A for the deaf and hard of hearing. First up, we have a public hearing on the fiscal year 2021 preliminary budget. Becky, could you bring the presentation up?
I think Linda's gonna drive, so I'm gonna step back and let her do that unless it doesn't work.
Okay. Okay, I'm just bringing it up as well since
Oh, yeah.
we're good to go.
Okay.
Do you want to hit presentation mode?
Yes.
Where do we find this?
Perfect. Okay. So obviously due to the pandemic, the town took immediate measures to manage spending and reduce expenditures approved in the 2020 budget. So we were anticipating reduced revenues in rec programs, sales tax, other town fees. And therefore, basically, we tried to offset those costs as much as possible. Part-time and seasonal employees were suspended until the summer months for grounds maintenance, and they're still at a minimum. We have enough to make sure we can provide our services, but again, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the temporary or seasonal people were not hired or hired on a limited basis. Planned hires were suspended. A lot of spending for programs, events, and potential projects were suspended or completely eliminated. The exception are those that are in from budgets that are what I'll call COVID immune. So some budgets aren't dependent on revenues that are affected by COVID. In addition, some monies were coming from external grants. And so again, those weren't affected as much either. And then basically the costs for items to reopen the town were incurred and planned appropriately in 2021. So, we're expecting similar type of activity and that we're going to have to take similar measures coming up next year. Want to hit year in review? So as you can see, we were under significantly on a lot of expenses. We were also significantly under in a lot of revenues. Large portions of that came from the recreation programs. And then, so obviously we were able to offset that with a lot of cuts, essentially shutting down programs, canceling some events. Some of the events had to be canceled anyways due to the pandemic. In terms of drainage and sewer, those again are still largely COVID immune. However, through cost savings and other reductions, we kept those expenses down. And the revenues effectively were pretty close. Next slide. So even so, we still got a bunch of construction done. We did get all of our street paving done. We put in a number of new sidewalks. The one you're looking at there is a new sidewalk on Jefferson Road. We did a bunch of repairs to Tinker Park, including the cobblestone repair. We've started work on replacing the footbridge between the senior center and Veterans Memorial Park. We're working on replacing that with a culvert that will provide a second access. One of the issues with Veterans Memorial Park is there is only a single bridge over Red Creek. And that causes an issue, especially during the 4th of July when there's thousands and thousands of people. If that bridge were ever blocked by a vehicle accident or whatever, emergency vehicles wouldn't be able to get in. So this will provide a second access into the park. We also had some funds available to do landscaping on the library. Some of those were from the library funds and some of those were from that. It's half on the library and it's half on parkland. So some of those funds were also funds that are collected specifically to make improvements to parkland. And then, we finished up the construction of the West Wing for both the engineering area and the engineering department and the building department. Those had started, and a lot of the funds for that came from DASNY. Next slide. And then we also still were able to hold a number of community events. We had to cancel our Memorial Day parade and our 4th of July celebration, so we kind of mashed the two of them together. And we did what I called a reverse parade, which is where the presenters stayed in place and the spectators drove by. So it was kind of reverse, where normal parade, the spectators stay sitting and the entertainment goes by. It was very successful, so much so that we did it again for Halloween with our Boo Moon Cruise Through. Again, a lot of good feedback from that. In addition, we did mask distributions. The senior center has been doing weekly lunches, and we've done a number of food link distributions, including there is one tomorrow, scheduled for tomorrow. If anybody's watching this and hasn't signed up, it is all full, but typically you can show up at 11:30 at Veterans Memorial Park because there's often no shows, and or if they end up, they often get extra food. So, you're basically on a if available basis, but generally it's available. Next slide. So the 2021 preliminary budget is $22.5 million. That's net of fund transfers, grants, transportation district projects. So it's the stuff that, one of the things, I've said this before, that always drives me crazy with the way government accounting works. If I transfer $500,000 from the general fund to the highway fund, it shows up as a $500,000 expense in general and $500,000 revenue in highway, and then shows up as a $500,000 expense in highway when they spend it. And so throws off the totals when you add them up, roll them all up. So we have taken, to make it clear and easier to understand, we net out those fund transfers. You'll see this represents almost a $4 million drop from the 2020 amended budget. I will note that the actual budget 2020 expenditures will be significantly less due to the reductions due to COVID. But even so, this is still down, down significantly than where we expected to be. Again, we've basically put off a lot of expenses, anything in the general fund. We're saving money wherever we can because we fully expect the first quarter to be brutal in terms of both expenses and revenues. And the reason expenses are higher is because we have to do a lot more cleaning protocols. If we go into the orange or red, we have to work on reduced staff. So you're basically have half the people to get the work done. That's going to be interest during plowing season. Next slide. So again, as you see the year-over-year expenditures, the 2021 preliminary budget is down significantly. And again, as I said, the actual 2020 will not be that high, but we don't have the final numbers yet, so we haven't adjusted it yet. Next slide. One thing I'd like to talk about is to try to help people understand the difference between the tax levy and the tax rate. So the tax levy is the sum total of how much we collect in property taxes. There's a lot of people who believe, oh, you're raising our assessments to collect more money. We do not receive 1 penny more in taxes by raising someone's assessment. Conversely, we do not collect 1 penny less in taxes by lowering an assessment. Assessment has no impact on how much tax we collect. That is determined as part of this process when we pass the budget. What the assessment does determine is how it is apportioned amongst the taxpayers. And so if your assessment goes up at a faster rate than your neighbor, for instance, then your slice of the pie gets a little bit bigger and their slice of the pie gets a little bit smaller. But the total amount we collect is the same. And so, again, the tax rate, it's basically if I take the tax levy and divide it by the total assessed value of all taxable properties in town. And so, for example, if I have $4 million tax levy and I have $3.2 billion in taxable properties, the tax rate would be $1.25 per thousand of assessed value. Next slide. One of the things to understand is the difference between real growth and total growth. So real growth is that in the town is due to new construction, enlargements or improvements of existing property. So this is, the new plaza that was built, Menotti Crossings, that's all new plaza, that's new additions to the tax roll. The Rochester Area Reliability Project over on East River Road is a significant increase to our tax rolls. So that's called real growth, and for this year, it's about 3.9%. The total growth includes both the real growth as well as any growth due to increases in assessed values. And so the thing with that is it's not real growth, right? The pie is the same. I'm not bringing in new taxpayers. I'm not bringing in new improvements to existing parcels. It's just that the house values have gone up. And so, one of the things that if you hold your tax rate flat and there is an increase in assessment, you have effectively raised taxes because they're paying that additional tax on that change in assessment. If you're holding the levy flat and I increase assessment, the rate will actually go down and that will counteract the other. Next slide. So this is basically what I just talked about. Like I said, that, again, if you really talk about it from a tax levy standpoint, that makes it clear as to how much taxes going up. One of the interesting things is if you hold the tax levy flat, and I have a bunch of new growth in town, effectively I'm lowering taxes because I'm now dividing it amongst more people, more property. Next slide. I'm happy to say for the second year in a row, there will be a $0 tax levy increase. So this was a challenge this year, much harder than last year because of all of the COVID related stuff. A lot of towns are significantly increasing their tax levy and or their tax rate. We're holding it flat, the levy flat. We're collecting the same amount of taxes we did last year from a straight property tax standpoint. Next slide. So one of the things you'll notice, this is the 2020 tax rates from Monroe County. They haven't published the new ones yet. We were already the lowest in the county with the exception of Riga. Riga's is 0 because they have a giant landfill that pays all their property taxes. But you know, last year we were 1.33. The next closest was Parenton at 2.22, or excuse me, 2.24. Next slide. So again, because we're holding the levy flat and the total assessed value is going up, your tax rate is going to go down. So we're going to go from a 1.33 down to about a 1.22 rate. That's anticipated. We don't have the final numbers in from the county. And so that's a decrease of about 8.5%. Next slide. So one of the things that we're also, this is basically just showing where that breakdown goes. So appropriations, basically that's how much money I have to collect. I subtract out revenues that I'm anticipating. So that's sales tax, mortgage tax, building fees, stuff like that, you know, including revenue from the recreation department. And then I can apply some fund balance to that. And fortunately, you know, we maintain decent fund balances here. We're able to apply some of that in order to keep the tax flat. And so then that leaves a result as to how much we actually have to raise in taxes. And that's where you get that number from. Next slide. So this again shows, this is the last 3 years. As you can see, the town's value has been increasing. You know, and again, there was a significant increase this year. That's the top slide because of, like I said, the largest contributor was the Rochester Area Reliability Project in terms of real growth. And again, for any realtor can tell you, it's a seller's market right now. The instant you put your house up for sale, you're going to get multiple offers at or above your asking price. They typically have been selling for 20 to 30% over assessed value. So, you know, unfortunately, for those people who stress out about assessment changes, it's not going to be too long before we're going to have to reassess again because the market is going crazy right now. The middle slide shows the tax levy, that's flat. It's the same value for the past 3 years. And so when I then take one over the other, you can see my tax rate is going down. So that's a year-to-year trend for the past 3 years. Well, this year, last year, and next year. Next one. In addition to the tax rates, there are some special district charges. So drainage, we're going to decrease the tax levy by about $60,000 for an estimated decrease of $1.15 per unit. As I understand, that's the units is based off of acreage. Sewer, the tax levy decrease is about $31,600. So that should see a drop of about $2.96 per unit. In that case, that's the residential sewer rent rate will drop by about $3. So in addition to any potential savings from the decrease in the tax rate, you will see some potential savings for drainage and sewer. Not everybody's on sewer, obviously. Next one. The way this basically works, the budget process works, we first put out a tentative budget back in October. We had meetings with town board members and department heads, updated the numbers, got information from our benefit providers. There were a bunch of small adjustments made based off of comments and other changing data. Then during the October 28th meeting, we basically had a presentation, presented the tentative budget. It was forwarded basically at that meeting. We then have, at the next meeting, basically it goes to from tentative budget to preliminary budget. There was one change made during that. The town board elected to remove the commitment to the special attention detail, which was to have sheriff deputy assigned to, pay special attention, especially in residential areas where we were having some traffic issues. There was a fear with the potential trouble with COVID as to whether we could afford that. So the plan was we removed it from the budget. If COVID clears and revenues go back up, we can add it back in, for half a year effectively. Next slide. Included in the budget, there's a couple additional heads. So basically, in the highway department, DPW, basically we're have an increased focus on highway maintenance and plowing. One of the things for years, the town has been adding a lot of lane miles, and there weren't many people added to the DPW, and so people were being stretched thinner and thinner. So each year, pretty much since I've been putting the budgets together, I've been adding people to the DPW. The goal is eventually to get to where we have effectively 1.5 plow crews, so that in the event of these big snowstorms that start in the middle of the night and continue on through the morning, we could have a full crew keeping the mains clear and have a half crew working on the sides. By doing that, even if the main crews have to stay on the main roads the entire time, they would actually clear the sides at the same rate we do today, because today with only one full crew, we clear the mains, then we clear the sides, then we clear the mains. The problem is with these big heavy snowstorms that just keep going, by the time we're done clearing the mains, we actually have to clear the mains again, and that causes problems for the sides. Streets can get some heavy accumulation. We're also adding a position in buildings and grounds maintenance. That's basically help with the mowing and work in the parks and facilities. Again, we've been adding parks to the town, whether it's full-fledged parks, whether it's green belts, and we've just been stretched thin. So we're looking to increase personnel there. Next slide. In terms of capital outlay, we've postponed a lot of it, both in 2020 and in 2021, but there's a couple that we need, still doing our standard schedule, equipment replacement. We need to make sure that the equipment that our employees are using is safe. And then we're also replacing a heavy equipment lift. Again, it's been there, it's at the end of its life expectancy, and we don't want to have an unsafe lift if we need to lift these vehicles up to service them. And we also don't want to be caught to where it suddenly breaks and we cannot repair our snow removal equipment. Next slide. This is the preliminary budget. As you can see, 51% of all the expenditures goes to personnel and benefits. 8% is capital outlay. 2% goes to capital projects. 32% goes to contractual services, 3% goes to debt service. That's for predominantly for the library bond. And then 4% goes for equipment. Next slide. When we hear people complain a lot about property tax, and of course they always complain to the town. As you'll notice, ours is one of the smallest slices there. The largest portion goes to the school district. That's about 60%. I think it's about 26. I can't fully read that. 26% goes to the county, 9% to the fire district, 1% to ambulance, and like I said, 4% to the town. Ours is actually dropping from about 3.8% to 3.6%, but it still rounds up to 4. Next slide. So, a couple of things. The Rush Henrietta Central School District, their levy increased by about $3 million, which is about a 3.8% increase. However, if you remember, the real growth is 3.9%. So effectively, they've held their taxes flat. For the town tax itself is $0, so no change in the levy. And the drainage and sewer are both going down. For the Henrietta Fire District, they are increasing their tax by $1.5 million, which represents about a 13% increase. So even if you subtract out the 3.9% growth, they're still increasing taxes by 9%. CHS Mobile, we changed the way the formula worked. It used to always hold the tax rate flat. That was okay when you were in a time when there wasn't a lot of market growth. Now that we're in this massive market growth, it didn't work. So we basically told them we would cap it at the real growth. So therefore, even though they're, I just noticed that we have a cut and paste error. Theirs isn't going up by 1.5. But even though theirs is going up by 3.9%, because again, that's equal to the growth, it's effectively holding it flat. So their tax rate will actually go down. The county, someone had an update on the county. Does anyone remember?
No.
We'd heard it, but it was actually much better than I expected. I was expecting a significant increase because of all the COVID costs, but that did not appear to be the case. If I remember correctly, it was in the range of what our growth in town was. So, and that's it. Any questions? Anybody in the audience have any questions? Anybody online? God damn. Okay.
I'd just like to say that great job by Linda, our finance director, and all the department heads for keeping things in line so our tax levy didn't go up. I think that's outstanding in a year that we didn't have much revenues, and we lost a lot. So I'm very glad to hear that we kept our taxes flat. Great job, Mr. Supervisor, also.
Thank you.
And thank you to the previous board for having thought of having a generous fund balance for this kind of emergency. This is the time that we need this kind of thing.
I want to thank Linda also for getting everything together and the department heads for
Yes.
all the work and the meetings that we did have. So, and thank you, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. The department heads put a lot of thought into where they could make cuts in order to make this budget work.
And, as well as during the year is how we could save costs. And one of the things we did is when we did that, we did it in such a way so as that we did not have layoffs of full-time people. There was one individual who took a essentially voluntary layoff in the rec department. We had 2 full-time rec assistants. We only needed one. One of them, because their child was going to be home, elected to take the layoff. That's the only layoff we had in
That's
terms
great.
of full-time people. So we were able to keep all of our employees whole while still keeping our budget and, our commitment, fiducial responsibility to our taxpayers to keep their taxes down. So that, again, that credit goes to the department heads and the staff working with them. Everybody essentially chipped in to figure out, how we could do things efficiently, and what things that could either be canceled or postponed without negatively affecting the services we provide.
Great job.
Really is, and it was really impressive to see how everybody worked so hard to make it so doable and for the town to get through this.
Anything else? Any other comments online, Becky?
Nope, no comments online.
Okay, then hearing no objections, I will close the public hearing. Can I get my first resolution?
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 23-272, 2020, to authorize bills payable for November 18th, 2020.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
I do actually have one thing if Adrian happens to be online. Having done the bills this time, I saw that there was a lot for the library, particularly for Overdrive. And I was just curious as to how that ebook function worked for the library. Adrian?
I'm here. What do you mean by how the
Well, because of COVID, we've been using ebooks a lot more.
Yeah.
And we use Overdrive quite a lot. So I was just interesting as I was going through I was just wondering, when you purchase those from the publisher, do you have to like purchase like a subscription, or you purchase the book and loan it out?
Yeah. Okay. So now I understand.
I'm sorry, Ed.
So it's basically for Overdrive, there's a platform fee that the system pays for, and then we actually lease content. So it depends on what it is. So the ebooks that you actually read generally are leased for like 24 uses or 2 years. Each publisher has a different model. And then when those uses are up, you have to release it. The audiobooks work a little differently. Usually you pay one price that's a little higher, and you get to keep that content indefinitely, just forever, theoretically. So that's how it works.
Okay. No, I was wondering if there was if there was a limited number of uses that people could borrow it for. So anyways, sorry, I just thought it was interesting when I ran into it.
Yeah, we've been certainly seeing the use go up so over this time last year, we're virtually checking out about 2,000 more digital items than we were at this time last year. So it's really I think a lot of people who don't feel safe going out are just busy with all the craziness. They've really been leaning on that. So it's good. And people can get a library card to use that content without even coming in. And we've issued hundreds of cards that way since the pandemic began. So.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I felt sorry for Millie because today someone from the finance department showed up with about 1.5 inch thick stack of checks for all the election people. So it was a Herculean effort for her to go through the bills today.
We're all glad we.
Mike didn't want to do it.
Great job, Millie. Way to step up.
Better job for me. Wasn't my turn.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 23-273, 2020, to declare intent to be lead agency for seeker review of a proposed plus or minus 350 unit multifamily housing and a plus or minus 500,000 square foot commercial industrial space at the northeast and southeast corners of Lehigh Station Road and East River Road in an industrial zone district with a mixed-use employment center overlay.
Second.
So I'll open discussion by pointing out that this development had been previously approved before I had taken office. It was going to be all apartments, and was a huge number of units, which could have potentially caused a lot of traffic issues. Not to say that this one isn't going to have, obviously, we're going to need a traffic study, for this, is going to be generating traffic. But this is under the new mixed-use employment center overlay, which basically, the idea is when we pulled apartments as a use out of the industrial zones and some of the commercial zones, we basically had to provide a location where they could go. You can't say, nope, can't have any multifamily anywhere in town. So one of the things we looked at is these mixed-use overlay districts. So two of them were more related to improving or reusing some of the retail areas in town, especially those that are seeing declines due to changes in people's shopping practices. In this case, the idea here is that there's a lot of people who wish to live near where they work. And so this is the land south of RIT. The idea is to bring in businesses there and, to create what I'll refer to as the Millennial Office Park, which not only has an office park, but also has apartments, has park space, public space, walking trails, things like that. So that's what this one is built after. It's market rate apartments, which basically means just what most people think of as regular apartments. There's an office park to the east. They're building the other half of this development is their own park, office park to the south. There's an office park to the west. So these apartments will be surrounded by office parks and industries, with the idea that people who do wish to work at those industries could live there. In addition, what they'll be doing is, most people know, we're bringing a sidewalk on East River Road from about midway down the RIT property. Our goal was to get all the way down to Lehigh Station Road. Well, the problem when you go south and I get to about Fairwood Drive, I hit a creek, I hit wetlands, and I hit significant terrain right up alongside the road. So it would have been very difficult to continue the sidewalk along the road all the way down to Lehigh Station Road. These developers are going to pick up the sidewalk from Fairwood, and they're going to bring it through their complex and essentially make a greenbelt trail type thing. It will still be a paved trail surrounded by greenbelt through the complex and get all the way down to Lehigh Station Road. And when they work on phase 2, which is where the industrial portion is, their plan is to potentially extend that further down, essentially to the bottom of the hill, south. It's where the second light is on the southern light on the Riverwood Tech Campus. And that was part of the design that the previous board put into place with the multifamily, what was the update to the comprehensive land use plan. These multi-use, 10% of it had to be kind of public open space. And so the trail meets about half of their requirements, and then they're going to have like an open park area for the other half of that requirement. So, it's neat seeing stuff that you spent what do we spend, 18 months
Yeah.
on it, to see it actually come to fruition and to start to see benefits from it. And we're not just seeing it here, we're also seeing it take place at Marketplace Mall. That's another one of the mixed use overlays. So you're seeing U of R take advantage of that and put a medical center in there. And there is a senior housing complex, which should also include some affordable senior housing potentially going into that area as well. So that's, you know, the concept of the mixed use. So, you know, it's exciting to see this go in. I'll just make clear, all we're doing here is we're declaring our intent to be lead agency. At the next meeting, we're gonna, next workshop meeting in December, they're gonna do a presentation, and then it won't be until the January meeting, the first meeting in January, to where we'll actually have the hearing and present and potentially get, you know, grant the special use permit. They'll basically have to be at a special use permit meeting, because to do any mixed use development, it starts with the special use permit to approve the layout of the mixed use plan. Questions, comments?
No.
I'll just be interested to see what their plan is about the traffic. It's gonna
Yep.
be, it's,
Anybody online or in the audience here? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 23-274, 2020, to authorize the supervisor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with Monroe County to receive CARES funding for COVID-19 related expenses.
Second. Any discussion?
Just glad that that money's available to pick up some of the costs that we incurred.
Yeah, that is good. And
Hopefully it is there.
is this going directly to, okay, it's reimbursement. Okay.
Right. Yeah, so we already had it. These are expenses that we incurred up through, I think it was like November 2nd or something like that. It was about $42,000 direct expenses. You know, that's cleaning supplies, the stuff, additional equipment we needed to go to virtual meetings, things like that.
Great.
Any other
good.
questions? Anything online or in the audience? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have Resolution 23-275, 2020, to authorize the supervisor to sign an agricultural lease agreement with Mark Green for property on Calkins Road.
Second.
So this is the agreement, you know, if you remember, we went out to bid bid's not the correct term, but we asked for people to submit responses to farm the property. When the Aldridge family donated the land for Tinker Farm and the homestead, the land south of Calkins Road was to be part of the park, and the land north, they expressed a desire to see it continue to be farmed. And so what we've been doing is we've, you know, reached out to local farmers who will come and work the land. And then the revenue from that gets put into the Park and Recreation Trust, which basically helps pay for improvements to the park. Any other questions, comments from audience or online?
I'm glad that we have a great way to support farmers, and the farmers have a great way to support the town.
Agreed. And thank you to, obviously, the Eldridge family for their original donation, and to Mr. Green for his farming that he's been doing for a number of years now.
And Mr. Green was the only one who
Correct.
had any.
We kind of
Interesting.
knew that, you know, we know that the farmers are a close-knit community and they typically don't poach each other's, but by law, I don't know if it's by law, but certainly standard, we had to go out because the contract had expired.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz, I have Resolution 23-276, 2020, to authorize Kenyon Pipeline Inspection LLC to repair the sanitary sewer pipe on Wildbriar Road, Charlottes Drive, and Kramer Street.
Second.
So I'll open discussion by noting that roughly half of the costs will be covered by a community development block grant. It's through Monroe County, but I believe the funding comes from the Housing and Urban Development. And so, you know, this is work we've been doing for some time. It's basically, by slip lining them, it prevents further deterioration and gets a lot longer lifespan out of the sewer pipes. Saves the cost of, you know, some short time down the road having to tear them all up and replace them. Any other comments, questions?
I think that's great to keep our infrastructure safe and up to date.
Hearing no further comments, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 23-277, 2020, to accept the dedication of roadways and storm sewers for Howlett Acres subdivision, Section 1.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 23-278, 2020, to approve the conveyance of open space from Howlett Acres subdivision.
Second.
So when this subdivision was first approved, it included the town board approving the future conveyance of the open space from the Section 278 New York State Town Law. And so it's actually finally ready to be conveyed. It's not exactly a town park. It's more open space, trails, that type of stuff. The land isn't really necessarily appropriate for a park with, you know, like pavilion or ball field, stuff like that. There may become a time in the future where, you know, maybe we do what I refer to as a neighborhood playground set, but currently there's none of that there today. It's an open area, like I said, with some sidewalks and stormwater pond facility.
I just think it's a positive anytime we can secure green space for the future.
Agreed. Any other discussion? That includes from the public. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 23-279, 2020. To authorize the supervisor to execute a proposal from Magdy Land Surveying, PC, to do a field topographical survey of Highland Drive from 390 to Jefferson Road for the Highland Drive sidewalk project.
Second, open discussion by noting that the funds to do this, both the survey itself as well as the the sidewalk construction, are coming from the Jefferson Road Transportation Development District that was created years ago. All the improvements to the road have been completed, and the money's been sitting in that district for a while now. The money can only be spent in the district, and it has to be spent towards transportation improvements. So since Highland Drive has no sidewalks, and it would be very beneficial, especially for all those who use the bus service there, to have a sidewalk, we decided to put that design together and put in a sidewalk. So to do that, we need a good topographical survey. And so that's the next step. So again, mention that the funds there are essentially immune to COVID. They're already there.
Right.
And can only be spent on this type of stuff. So it makes a lot of sense to do it.
Yeah, that's a much needed area for sidewalks. I know that I've seen a number of people walking through that area, and it's kind of scary.
I think I remember you, Mr. Supervisor, you saying that this map could also be used for the east side, for a sidewalk also in the future if it came to put it down there, right?
Correct. So we're gonna survey both sides because there are some portions where depending on where the costs come in, after we've built the west side, we may extend some of the sidewalk on the east side. That way it's all surveyed at once. You get some economy of scale by doing it all at once.
Very good.
Any other questions, comments, including from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have Resolution 23-280, 2020, to authorize the supervisor to sign an out-of-district sewer use agreement with Empire Soccer Academy.
Second.
Any questions, comments, discussion? For those who don't know, an out-of-district sewer use agreement is basically if a single property is being added to a sewer line, rather than create a whole new district, they're just added through an out-of-district agreement. It's pretty typical. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have Resolution 23-281, 2020, to authorize the supervisor to sign an out-of-district sewer use agreement with 4211 West Henrietta Road LLC.
Second.
So for those who don't know, 4211 West Henry Road LLC, that's the land, the LLC that Subaru,
Oh, okay.
that's that property there.
Gotcha.
What typically happens is when they develop the land, they name the company, they form an LLC for that venture, and it's quite often named after the address of the property being developed.
Gotcha.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 23-282, 2020, to authorize the supervisor to execute an addendum to the Young Explosives Corps agreement dated December 11th, 2019.
Seconded.
So basically, what we're doing here, the agreement covers, it's $20,000 a year. If we commit now to the 4th of July, and obviously if the event is canceled due to COVID, we're, for lack of a better way to put it, off the hook. Although I would expect we would do a reduced amount, reverse parade like we did this past summer. Hopefully, COVID will be over by 4th of July, thanks to vaccines. But the point being, because of, as you can imagine, with the reduced business, they're also looking to shore up revenue. And so, or, a lot of times what happens is if they need to get a loan, if they have signed contracts, they can get the loans essentially applied against those signed contracts. So they basically offered us a $3,000 discount if we sign up now. We would still get the same amount of fireworks. It would cost $3,000 less. So that's what we're doing.
Great.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 23-283, 2020, to authorize the supervisor to execute a telecommunication connectivity service agreement with Verizon Wireless.
Second.
So this is another example of saving money. So Andrew Stewart, our Director of IT, found essentially another procurement award through the state, where the wireless services, we use Verizon for our town cell phones. The rates are cheaper on this other contract. So we are switching from our current contract to the new state contract in order to save money.
Great.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 23-284, 2020, to authorize the purchase of a replacement tractor using proceeds from the insurance settlement.
Second. So for those unaware, to remember the others, we had a tractor, we had an accident where a tractor rolled and it was essentially destroyed. Chuck Marshall, our Commissioner of Public Works, found a tractor, essentially the exact same tractor, and we can get the cost basically covered from the insurance payment. So we're moving to do that replacement. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 23-285, 2020, to adopt the official undertaking of receiver of taxes and assessments.
Second.
For those who don't know, an official undertaking is a form of insurance, and it's required by New York State Town Law, Section 25. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 23-286, 2020, to adopt the fiscal year 2021 preliminary budget.
Second.
Any discussion?
I really appreciate the budget presentations that you do. I think that's really helpful to everyone in the community for transparency.
One of the things I realized we forgot to put in there was the updated projected fund balances. Again, we're not going to know for certain until this year closes. But the projected is, Linda, was it 21% roughly for the combined general highway library? One of the things that we do, just to make clear, per our policy, we're supposed to keep 20% for those three. We do it we keep most of the money in the general surplus because I can move money from general to highway and from general to library. I can't easily go back the other direction. So what we do is we add the three of them together, and as long as the total of the three exceeds the threshold, which is 19 to 25%, then, that's how we deal it. So you'll typically hear me refer to them together. It's like I said, general, highway, and library.
Yes, Steve, this is Linda. It's approximately 21.5% is our estimate.
Okay. Sorry, that's a minute.
Thank you. For those who aren't aware, at the previous board, we actually formalized our budget policy. If the surplus ever gets greater than 25%, we are supposed to earmark that. So that could be earmarked towards reducing the next year's tax budget. It could be earmarked towards capital improvements, but it can't sit in a quote unquote slush fund. If you remember, there was some issues in the past when the town had built up roughly $14.5 million in surplus funds. The issue wasn't that they had built up the surplus funds, it's that they didn't earmark them.
Right.
They were purposefully building those funds up so that they could build the new rec center and the new library without having to go out to bond. The problem is when they got above that mark, they should have been putting it into a capital budget, a capital account or, something earmarked to actually build those facilities. And so we formalized that policy so that it's crystal clear what we're doing with that.
Yep.
So to avoid any, I'll call it appearance of impropriety,
Right.
because it wasn't really impropriety. It just wasn't.
Any ambiguities or anything
Right,
like that?
exactly.
It's clear, yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 23-287, 2020, to make appropriate budget transfers and adjustments per the 2020 adopted budget.
Seconded.
I'll just open comments by saying, we've made a concerted effort to get on this stuff faster, especially anything with state funding because of where the state budget is. Hats off to Linda and her team. I've never seen DASNY money come in this fast. We've had a number of DASNY projects that we submitted this year and the money's already in.
That's great.
So, a lot of it's just getting all the paperwork done and, to the department heads, responsible for the various projects to make sure that all the information needed to be submitted was available and ready to go in. Because, again, with the state of the New York budget, I wouldn't want to leave any of that money sitting out there for a long time or else the state may claw it back.
Correct.
Any further discussion, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 23-288, 2020, to hire personnel and make the attached changes.
Second.
So this particular one includes most of the hires for the snow removal, typically referred to as the wing operators, as well as we have a new hire in the town clerk's office. So we have our, Becky, is she deputy clerk or is it a different title?
It's Deputy Town Clerk, yes.
We have our third deputy town clerk.
Very good.
Much rejoicing. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. That concludes our resolutions. Do we have any additional discussion items from the board or from the public?
Just 1 second, I'm trying to pull something up here.
Sure. Not committee or miscellaneous reports, that's coming up in a second.
Okay, sorry.
Nothing from the public? Okay. Now, do we have any reports? I'll just, while you're doing that, I'll just again reiterate that tomorrow from 10 to noon is the Food Link food distribution at Veterans Memorial Park. If you were unable to sign up but wish to participate, you can show up around 11:30. There's often no-shows, and they also often get extra food. So by 11:30, they typically know how much is available and will let in people who have not signed up typically. You may have to wait a little bit depending on where they are in distribution, but that's the best time to show up in that regards. If you are unable to sign up for this one or looking for the next one will be December 17th. So again, you can go to Food Link, you can sign up right online, or you can call 211. Typically, sign up doesn't open up till about 2 weeks before the event. So I would, for the 17th, I would start in basically the first week in December.
And it's my understanding that sign up is much easier online versus 211. I hear there's a long wait on 211, so you might want to, if you're able to, do it online.
Great, thanks, Mike.
So I just want to report, from the rec department, the Boo Moon Cruise Through was a great success. We were there, and it was over 500 families went through, and all the groups, the participants that took part in it was great. So I want to thank all of them. Red Cross will be holding their blood drive at the rec center on Saturday, December 12th, 9 to 2. Appointments are preferred. Unfortunately,
Is that a weekend, Michael?
yes, that is a Saturday.
Saturday, okay. Thanks.
Unfortunately, it's my understanding that the Breakfast with Santa has been canceled this year. So let me just finish here.
Just so you know, Santa has not been canceled.
Santa hasn't been canceled.
Just
Just the
breakfast.
breakfast.
Just the
Yes,
breakfast.
Just the breakfast. I don't
Santa's
want
going to be very busy at the North Pole.
I don't want to get anybody worried out there.
I thought Santa was going to be canceled. I'm glad you clarified that.
So the 15th annual Martin Luther King celebration will be held virtually this year. Thursday, January 14th. We got a little time there. Real quickly here.
I'll note that the Henrietta Fire District elections will be December 8th, 2020, between the hours of 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. for the purpose of electing one Fire District Commissioner for a 5-year term of office. That's at Henrietta Fire District Station Number 6, 60 Erie Station Road, West Henrietta.
So I saw we had an email today on that saying that whoever's going to run had to have their signatures in by today, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know, assuming that the person whose term was up is running again, there will be, I know there's at least one other candidate.
Okay,
There's
that's
been
great.
some things on Henrietta highlights
Yeah.
sent out, so.
So it's my understanding the rec department won't be printing their 2021 winter brochure this year, but the related content will be sent out in our upcoming Henrietta happenings.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm putting the newsletter together this week. Hopefully have it done by Monday. Get it out to the printers, hopefully for distribution first week in December. As Mike said, we're not doing the brochure because we know the rec programs are going to be fluid if they're present at all. So we'll have some information on the stuff we know that's happening in the newsletter itself, as well as information on how to find out, information on programs, statuses, because again, as we, right now we're in yellow. If we go to orange or red, that's going to greatly impact the events and what we can offer. So we learned our lesson last spring. We had printed the brochure and then essentially had to throw it out. So while we're in this pandemic, we're not printing any brochures.
There we go. That's smart.
And just, at the rec center, any high-risk activities such as competitive basketball or volleyball are still not allowed. Skills development is still allowed, so you can go throw baskets, but no competitive games. And all the visitors and staff are still required to wear a mask at all times.
Yeah, because we're in orange, so for a brief period before the recent spike, if you were playing a heavy exertion activity that had some social distancing, we allowed you to not wear masks. Right now during yellow, everyone has to wear masks. We know it's not the most convenient thing when you're exercising, but public safety is paramount.
Also, the town installed a ramp on the back of the rec center for easier access to the building and playground.
Yeah, so basically what we've done is whereas normally everyone comes in the main entrance, because of the different activities and to help protect with COVID, we're using multiple entrances. So depending on which program it is, you come in a different entrance. The problem is not all of those additional entrances were handicap accessible. So we did sidewalk work to add ramps, to add handicap parking nearby, add crosswalk, that type of stuff. So
That's outstanding. Great job.
And so they're still having the grab and go food 3 days a week. Breakfast is on Monday morning. Grab and go sandwich for lunch is on Tuesday, and grab and go lunch is on Wednesday. I guess they serve over 200 people. So that's great. So that's all I have.
I have some things on the library. So the library was hoping to extend its hours come January, but I'm thinking with what's going on with COVID, it may be going in the opposite direction. So please check the library website to see what's going on with that. And one of the interesting facts that Adrian had let us know is that there is currently 17,774 library cards for the library, which is amazing. Can you imagine? But she has seen a big uptake in people taking books out, doing more curbside pickup because it sounds like they're starting to get ready, thinking that we're going to be going back down to just curbside for the library. Also, just do check the website because the library is planning with the holiday season being closed the day after Christmas and the day after New Year's. And I think that's it. I just want to commend Adrian and her staff on just how they keep acclimating to what's going on with the COVID and just making everything available to people. So thank you to Adrian and her staff.
Speaking of the library, I have to renew my card. Can I do that online, Adrian?
I think it should. If Rob, you don't have a lot of overdue fines. That is, it should.
Well, I've been kind of inactive. That's why I got to renew it. I don't have any overdue fines.
We'll talk, Rob.
I don't know, Rob, you left your card out, so there might have been a few extra books signed out there.
I don't even let my granddaughter use my card. That's why I get
I
overdue
was going to
books.
say, what about your grandkids?
I don't let them use it anymore. You got to get their own. They got their own last time.
Mhm.
Not as bad as my son who dropped one of his library books into the lake.
Poor fellow.
Oh, gosh.
Well, yeah,
Now you gotta buy a whole
went
book,
outside
huh?
in the rain, so I feel the pain.
Millie, did you have anything from school or?
No, not really, except I did want to just, I'm sure that most parents already know that they've started COVID testing in the schools, and they're asking for consent from parents. And I know that as a mom, I was initially a little anxious, how's my 7-year-old going to respond to, COVID testing? But after I learned that it's really a very shallow test, it's really nothing to be anxious about, and that it's just something that helps to keep us all safer and keep track of everything. I would strongly encourage all parents to give their consent and allow their child to be tested. And it's something that's really a benefit for your family and helps to keep your family, your household safe.
Yeah, I was speaking with the superintendent today at the ribbon cutting for the food pantry over at Good Shepherd School. He was saying that it's gone extremely well, and it's actually helped not just, it's helped with the staff because it's a instant test, and by instant I mean it's 15 minutes. So if they have a staff member who might be not feeling 100%, but they're not sure whether they have COVID, it allows them, instead of just staying home, they can essentially come to the quarantine area, do the test, and if they're negative, then they can continue. And the other place where it especially plays into is we've seen here, somebody has an exposure event. They don't have it themselves, but they were with somebody who potentially has it. They have to wait till that person gets tested, then they have to get tested. And so essentially you have people who are out who may never have had the disease in the first place. And so that instant testing has helped tremendously. They found it very beneficial.
Were they doing that, Steve?
In the schools?
At the schools.
Oh, wow. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a test. The swab only goes into the very end of the nostril, so it only goes in about an inch. It's not the type that goes all the way to the back of your brain. And they have a response in 15 minutes. If I remember correctly, it's 98%, picks up 98% of the cases, and doesn't have a really high false positive rate. So
To add to that, I saw some numbers on the news about all the different districts. And it seemed that Webster had the most instant tests, and their numbers were very low. And as they reported it, I don't know if it was a principal or someone in the staff or the supervisor of Webster, he actually demonstrated how easy it was.
Right.
And I think that's what made it easier, or at least more accepting for people to do
Yeah.
in a district. And so I would
The districts
recommend
are-
that our district do something like that to ease people's, their fears of doing it.
right.
Because it is an inconvenience, not as inconvenient as it once was. But
Right.
it is easier to
Well, and
test.
you worry if you sneeze or you
Yeah.
cough,
Yeah,
or you're so worried that it's COVID and you're all of a sudden like, okay, you have to apologize to everybody. Sorry, it's allergies.
even with a mask on,
Right.
I'm
Yes.
like, sorry,
So it's nice that they're able to do that, because I'm sure there's people that may just be dealing with allergies, especially with the weather going back and
Right.
forth. So
And they're trying to hit 20% of the population. Is that right, Millie?
Yeah.
It's a shame we didn't have these incident tests 6 months ago.
Oh, I know.
I mean, we may not be
Yeah.
in the circumstances we are today.
Right.
Yeah, well, and my understanding is that these are not, these are for a limited specific use
Right.
even. So they're allowed within the schools, but they're not used, generally speaking, as yet. It would be great to have them on some of the college campuses.
Yeah,
and
they
things
need,
like that
they
as
need to
well.
produce more of them. Yeah.
Well, I saw that Brockport's, they're doing all their students before they go to
Right.
Thanksgiving, which is great. And I
Yes.
think
A lot of
RIT is
schools are doing that.
voluntary.
I think soon, isn't SUNY requiring them to take a test before they
I know
leave?
Brockport's
So,
doing it.
yeah, so
Syracuse
as a SUNY employee, I can tell you that the governor, it has come from the top. All SUNY students must test negative before they go home. And then before they come back to campus, they also must test negative. But they have been also doing regular pool testing. So I think all of us have been pulled in probably 4 or 5 times already
Okay,
for regular testing.
better safe than sorry.
Yeah, SUNY will be going 100% remote after Thanksgiving.
Really?
Yep.
It's too bad.
Anything else?
I just want to say thank you to Terry Danielle for interpretation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
As
And I
much
was
as it
going to
can
say
be.
that.
As much as it can be.
Happy Thanksgiving.
happy Thanksgiving.
As liaison to the zoning and planning board, I'd like to say thank you to both those boards and all their members for all the hard work they've done through this pandemic. It's been refreshing to see how they show up and do their jobs and keep our town moving. And to our engineering and planning department, I see we have Mike here in the audience. Glad to see you here. As always, thanks for all the work that you do for our town. Appreciate you.
Yeah,
Craig, likewise.
We are really lucky. We have some really good people that work for the town, and it's
Yep.
really a family, and they're all going together to help each other. It's really impressive.
Yeah, some of these people are okay.
There's a lot of them are okay.
Happy Thanksgiving, though.
Since he's here, I'll call him out because we all know how much work he does, or if we don't know, we know now how much work he does. I will point out when we were out walking Highland Drive sidewalks prior to the survey and the questions, Mike met us up there and quickly, what would be the proper term? Stop traffic for a family of ducks across the road. It was quick
Ducks or
to-
geese?
Ducks, right? They were
They were
geese.
geese.
Sorry.
We figured
they
they
were
were
geese.
geese.
Stopped his vehicle off to the side, stopped traffic in the intersection of Marketplace in front of Lowe's and let the geese cross safely. So amongst his many talents, I'll point that out, okay?
Goose crossing.
Big day tomorrow. Boy, Jefferson Road.
Oh, yeah. And for those happen to be listening, I don't know how many people are actually online, but reminder that tomorrow is the grand opening for Chick-fil-A. So
Oh,
if you
yeah.
don't have to be in the Jefferson Marketplace Road area, you may not want to be. You know, we've been working hard, especially Deputy Town Supervisor Craig Eckert, in Captain Fay from the Monroe County Sheriff B Zone. I've been working very diligently on ensuring that the preliminary plan we put together back at the public hearing is continued to be implemented and updated, you know, as obviously adjusting for changes due to COVID, changes due to the plaza, changes due to requirements from the New York State DOT. But, you know, the traffic light has been installed. They're all set to go. We've got multiple message boards out, multiple signs. There'll be, Chick-fil-A has contracted with Monroe County Sheriffs to have 2 deputies directing traffic in the street to help make sure that traffic flows into and out of the plaza to keep the street clear. They're bringing people in through the southernmost entrance behind LA Fitness, so they can queue almost 100 cars inside the plaza. By comparison, the 14th car at Greece was out on the street. So it's a lot better location. It's a lot better traffic plan. We should hopefully not see any big lineups like they saw there. That's not to say there's not going to be increased traffic, that there's not going to be, you know, some longer delays at that particular intersection. But, you know, hopefully it'll all flow smoothly.
Yeah.
So, again, thanks to Craig and Captain Fay for their work on all their work getting that done.
That's great. I say one last thing in reference to Thanksgiving. Our town attorney has done a great job for us, keeping us in line, especially Steve. And his birthday is the day before Thanksgiving. So let's wish Don Young a happy birthday.
Happy
Happy birthday. And my present to the town is I won't sing happy birthday.
Well, the Honorable Councilman Barley's birthday is actually on Thanksgiving this year.
We'll all be partying together.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Yes. Best holiday.
He's the gift to the world, I guess. Let's all give thanks.
Anything else?
The birthday
Starting to get a
turkey.
little punch drunk, it sounds like. Oh, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing no objections, meeting adjourned.